So hi everyone, welcome to the Better Digestion and Gut Health event here, part 2. It's Corey Sievers here.
And it's Linda Barker here, looking forward to a great event.
Yep, so we're continuing here if you were joining us for part 1, where we talked about the benefits of living clean and shopping smarter with Modera. And we had our extra special guest speaker live from Thailand, Chris Woolham. So we're very thankful to have had him joining us. And we're going to continue on now in part 2, dealing with the specifics. We're going to cross around to some of the centres where there's groups of people and hear from some of the Savvy team leaders as they share, their experiences with certain products and give you a bit more information about what you've already, heard touched upon by Chris and myself in our chat. So we were talking before about probiotics, and if you're just joining, notice some different changes in the in people joining there. So Corey Sievers here, welcome to this Savvy Team event. We're talking here about probiotics, and we mentioned before about when the microbiome gets out of whack, that you've actually got to take back control of your inner well-being. It's not just about a willy-nilly sort of, take a bit of yogurt here and take some sauerkraut there and some kefir there and some kombucha here, and everything just gets better. You've got to actually take back control. And as you heard us talk about, your inner ecosystem really is like this cartoon depicts here. The Human Microbiome Project says that the human body has 100 trillion microscopic life forms living in it. The bugs might say you call this living because they're living on top of each other, but that's good for us. See, there's only 10 trillion human cells, but over 90 trillion bacteria in our intestines alone. So, up to 1,000 different species, and as you heard, they sort of educate our immune system, and they play a very important role. And your lifestyle impacts your inner ecosystem. So, at birth, humans acquire a balance of good and bad, and it sort of forms like a fingerprint for each person. But when we hit it with antibiotics and alcohol and a poor diet, these are just some examples of the things that can impact the balance of the bacteria inside us. So the eat yogurt is a myth. And sometimes you'll hear doctors say, have a bit of yogurt when you're on these antibiotics. It's sort of like saying that there's good bacteria in there, and so therefore it'll fix you up. From what the antibiotics have done. But this won't fix the problem. And now you've lost the natural diversity. Okay. We can, however, reproduce the conditions that suppress bad bacteria and thereby reduce the inflammation and all the other things that can cause the damage, the intestines to degenerate. And then re-establishing this good balance and suppressing the bad bacteria does allow the damaged intestine to regenerate. So, you can create better conditions with high-potency probiotics, like what we suggest, the Modera probiotic, and then gradually over time rebuild the microbiome with the yogurts and the kefirs and diet and raw milk and fermented veggies and all of that sort of thing. But you're better off, obviously, in the long run to avoid unnecessary antibiotics and medication. So, the interesting thing about when we take these nasty things, we can wipe out everything in our small intestine, for example, and then the bad bacteria comes in and fills the vacuum. And we usually shouldn't have these gas-forming bacteria in our small intestine, and that's why we don't generally get bloated if things are healthy. But if we suddenly get bloating, it's these bad bacteria that are causing the production of gas. Then you can also end up with harmful bacteria that can damage the villi and lead to leaky gut as well, and all sorts of allergies. So, and even the chemicals that they release can damage the gut wall as well. So, and this is often, just a bacterial overgrowth. A small intestine bacterial overgrowth is often misdiagnosed as a candida or celiac problem, when it's just that you've got bad bacteria. You've let your microbiome become damaged, and this leads to food sensitivities and all that sort of thing. So the interesting thing there, that if you've ever heard John Ellerman, the creator of our Modera probiotic product, he talks about the fact that bacteria can stick to parts in your intestine called the Peyer's patches, and this causes the patch to release cells which produce immune active molecules. And so the bad bacteria can cause the production of, pro-inflammatory things in the immune system. And good bacteria can produce anti-inflammatory stuff. So we want that good bacterial balance in our intestines. And so when you get the bad bacteria overgrowth affecting the pia patches, it can elevate inflammation. And this can cause things like asthma and hay fever and eczema and psoriasis and acne and rosacea. And even things like vaginal candidiasis and cystitis as well. This is also promoted by the action of bacteria in the intestines and the natural microbiome that you've got going on. When we're dealing with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, these are more sort of runaway inflammation problems. And this can be a result, of course, genetic issues, but it's also the action of the bacteria in the bowel. So, the gut has enormous surface area for the absorption of vitamins and minerals and all that sort of thing. But when we damage these little villi, this can lead to vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And so every day, we talked about the microbiome, and every day you're doing things to really affect it. And so your good bugs face a challenge every day, much like a Tough Mudder course, much like a Navy SEAL might have to go through to try to survive. It's a survival of the fittest challenge every day, and you're not giving them most of the time in this day and age a life on the beach. You're giving them a life every day trying to survive in the trenches. So they face a daily survival course like no other. And so when you take a probiotic, its challenge is to generate significant efficacy to get, to reestablish a little bit of an easier life for your good guys, shall we say. And so you've got to be able to have the right strains of probiotic culture that are the most effective at suppressing a wide range of pathogens. And you've got to be able to get them in enough numbers so that they proliferate and overwhelm the bad guys, so that their challenge is less moving forward. Okay, and you've got to be able to do it so that it can be affordable, of course, and that's what we're very fortunate to have with the world first product that we have access to through Modere, and that's our Savvy Team recommended probiotic product. From there, of course, you can go on all the probiotic foods and rebuild your microbiome, but we've got to re-establish the control of the good guys over the bad guys. Now, this, for those of you listening in other countries around the world, this is different. This is only available in Australia. There is a different probiotic which is very powerful. It just isn't quite the same and doesn't have the same types of components, but it is certainly effective. And as you've heard, if you've heard our interview with Chris Willems, that's what he's had great success with. So let me go through some of the research that led to the creation of this particular product that we are so fortunate to have. And so the government-funded Cooperative Research Centre for Food Industry Innovation, what they did is they involved scientists from industry, so from general business world, the CSIRO, and the University of New South Wales. And what they were looking to do was to isolate and screen probiotic cultures and find out the best ones, and also determine the effect of certain prebiotic fiber ingredients as a food source for the probiotics to boost the numbers of probiotic cells to really, really high levels as they traveled through the gut. The goal being to be able to get them in there in sufficient numbers, because most of the probiotic supplements you'll buy at the shop, when we're talking about 90 trillion cells, and if most of them end up being bad bacteria because we've damaged our microbiome, chucking in a couple of billion here and there is not going to get on top of the problem here. So we've got to get the right cultures at the right levels to overcome the bad bacteria. So here's what happened. The research has shown that unfortunately there's actually many probiotic culture strains available on the market today that actually stimulate the growth and activity of bad bacteria Can you believe that?
Could you repeat that, Corey? I think
They're
that's worth
on
discussing.
the market today in Australia. This is what this research project did. On the market today, there are strains in the supplements that can actually stimulate the growth of the bad bacteria in your intestinal tract.
So you're saying the supplements of probiotics
Yeah.
are actually
You go off and
stimulating the growth of the bad bacteria, not the good.
Not the good.
When people are taking it and they're wondering why they're not getting results.
So when you're out there, we've heard it all before. We've heard people say to us, "I already take a probiotic." Yes, but this is a well-known brand. Yes, but this was recommended by my practitioner. Well, the Cooperative Research Centre for Food Industry and Innovation, along with the CSIRO and University of New South Wales, cooperatively did this research, and they found that some of the brands out there stimulate the bad stuff. You might be using that if you're not using the product that we recommend. So here's what happened. They found a certain strain, and here's the problem as well that they have. You can over the course of time in your life, you've built up a natural diversity in your microbiome. And when you kill it off with all the antibiotics and drugs and poor diet and all of that sort of thing, you lose that diversity, and it's the good ones that are the most sensitive. Okay, and so the bad ones can then take over. But as far as a supplement goes, we can eat fermented foods, and we can eat raw foods that contain healthy bacteria and probiotic ingredients, and we can over time help with all of these natural foods, but they often don't help you get on top of a problem. They're all helpful. What happens though is commercially, through restrictions, government restrictions and everything, there are only certain strains that have been identified for use in commerce to be put into supplements. So even though there might be even better, strains out there that you can get naturally, they may not be able to be used in a supplement. So what we've got to do is through a supplement, gain control, and then your diet, your natural diet, when you eat savvy, or you follow like the rainbow diet that Chris Woolham spoke about, you gradually help and assist the natural diversity in some of these other super beneficial bacteria. But this is just diversity. It's not necessarily winning the war, so to speak. So what the research did was look at what's the best lactobacillus strain to suppress bacteria and be commercially available. What's the best bifidobacterium strain that suppresses bacteria and yet is commercially available? And so they found two certain strains, and they're the exact ones that have found their way into our product. So you're getting, when you change brands and use Modere, you're getting the best scientifically proven strains for controlling bad bacteria in you. That'll help you to win the war. And if you continue to support good health and eat savvy, you'll start to produce that biodiversity. And I want to show you what we mean by this with strains, because you go off and you get Lactobacillus acidophilus, or you get Bifidobacterium lactis, and you just think that they're but they're the same, but they're all the same. It's all the same. Well, it's like names. Let's take John Smith, and we'll even simplify it and say J. Smith. Now, are there some really good guys out there that are called J. Smith? Yeah. Could there be some nasty pieces of work that are also called J. Smith? Well, it's the same when we're dealing with bacteria strain. So this study looked at the effects of probiotics on the growth of E. coli, something that, you don't want to have grow. And they found that some of the strains that you could be purchasing actually stimulate the growth of E. coli. So this particular one up here, this strain that's depicted up here significantly increased the growth of E. coli. You do not, and this was a commercially available strain. You don't want that, do you? You definitely don't want that. You don't want that, you don't want that, you don't want any of these. What you want is the ones that suppressed it the most. That's what you've got when you change brands to what we recommend. Okay, you've got the ones that suppress it. Let's look at it another way apart from names, and we look at dog breeds. A dog's a dog, right? An acidophilus is an acidophilus, and a bifidus is a bifidus, you could say. Well, are there certain breeds of dogs that are better around people? And are there some aggressive breeds of dogs that are not so good around people? Exactly. And so, it's the same sort of thing. We've got the right breed of bacteria in us in this particular product. Proven. So the Lafty B94 was the only commercial B-lactis strain that was capable of suppressing the bacteria, but also using the prebiotics to grow rapidly. And the university research, proved that. Then there's the Lactobacillus acidophilus Lafty L10 strain that was identified and shown in experiments at the University of Newcastle to affect the immune system in a positive way. And that was presumably by that action on the Pies patches that we talked about before. So when you change brands to what we recommend, you've got probiotics that will do the job, proven. And so what are some of the things that you could overcome if you get the microbiome back in check? Getting rid of bloating and gastric reflux, malabsorption of nutrients, diarrhea, constipation and stomach ulcers, autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis even, celiac, food sensitivities, fibromyalgia even, asthma, hay fever, skin disorders, thrush, cystitis, chronic fatigue, autism, bowel cancer, IBS, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and depression. All of these things, as you heard if you've heard the interview with Chris Willems, all of these things can be impacted by cleaning up our microbiome. So hope that gives you a good overview of why we use what we use.